I was 52 when they fired me without warning. No meeting, no explanation, not even the decency of a final handshake. Just a cold email at 7:14 a.m. telling me my services were no longer required. After 27 loyal years in that company, after training half the people who now walked around calling themselves managers, after giving up weekends and family vacations for deadlines that were never mine, this was how they ended it. With one line. One click. Delete from system. I remember sitting at my kitchen table staring at that email, feeling something inside me collapse. Not sadness. Not fear. Something deeper. Like someone had quietly reached into my chest and turned off a switch I didn't know existed. My wife had passed away 5 years earlier, my son lived 3 states away, and suddenly the house felt bigger than it ever had. Empty in a way that echoed. And the worst part wasn't losing the job. It was the humiliation. People I had mentored avoided me. Friends from work sent short, awkward messages, then disappeared. I had given everything to that company, and in the end they treated me like a stain they needed to wipe off the floor. Bills started piling up. Savings drained quicker than I expected. I applied everywhere, but no one wanted a 52-year-old man who had spent nearly 3 decades in one place. Overqualified, they said. Not a good fit, they said. I knew what they meant, too old to be useful, too young to retire. So I swallowed my pride and took a job delivering groceries. Driving strangers' bags from store to doorstep. Smiling through rain, heat, and aching joints. Pretending it didn't hurt every time someone half my age called me sir, with pity in their eyes. I thought my life had shrunk down to this quiet, invisible existence. Until one afternoon when a customer opened his door, looked at me, and froze. He whispered my last name with shock, like it belonged to a story he knew too well. And in that moment, everything began to change. The man at the door couldn't have been more than 30. Tall, clean-shaven, wearing a pressed shirt that probably cost more than what I earned in a full day of deliveries. But it was the way he said my last name, slow, careful, almost reverent, that made my spine tighten. "You're Mr. Halden?" he asked, like he was confirming something impossible. I nodded, confused. "Yes. Do we know each other?" He swallowed hard. "Not directly. But my father talked about you. A lot." That threw me off. I didn't know many men his age who had kids this grown. He stepped aside slightly, lowering his voice as if afraid someone might overhear a simple conversation on a suburban porch. "You worked at Norfield Dynamics, right?" The company name alone felt like a bruise pressed suddenly. I nodded again, slower this time. My hands tightened on the grocery bags. He exhaled sharply, relief, disbelief, and anger all mixed together. "My father used to say your name whenever he talked about what happened to him. Before he died." My heart stumbled. I'm sorry. Who was your father?" He looked me straight in the eyes. "Daniel Pierce." The name hit me like a truck. Daniel Pierce. One of the brightest engineers we ever had. A man who questioned things, who pushed back when the senior management tried to cover up failures. A man who mysteriously resigned and vanished from the industry. Rumors had swirled, but no one knew the truth. The official story was that he had performance concerns, a lie we all knew but never challenged. I remembered the day he packed his desk, shoulders tight, hands shaking, a forced smile. I remembered the look he gave me, like he wanted to say something but couldn't. And then he was gone. The young man noticed my reaction. "So you did know him?" "Very well," I said quietly. He nodded, jaw clenched. "Before he died, he told me he was set up. Forced out. He said the company framed him to protect someone higher up. Someone powerful." I felt my breath catch. Then the young man leaned closer and whispered, "And he told me you were the only man he ever trusted." His words sank into me like slow poison. The only man his father trusted. I didn't know whether to feel honored or terrified. I hadn't spoken Daniel's name aloud in almost 15 years, yet hearing it now brought back memories I had forced myself to bury, long nights, quiet warnings, the tension that hung in the air when Daniel started questioning numbers that didn't make sense. The young man extended his hand. "I'm Aaron." I shook it, still holding one grocery bag in my other hand. "I'm sorry about your father. I didn't know he passed." Aaron nodded, his eyes softening. "Heart attack. 3 years ago. But even before that, he was never the same after what happened. He kept everything inside. I think the stress killed him long before his heart did." A dull ache spread across my chest. I remembered Daniel staying late in the office, reviewing documents that suddenly vanished. I remembered the day the company's chief operations officer, Marcus Hale, came down to our floor and spoke to him privately. And then the next week, Daniel was gone. I had always suspected Marcus engineered the whole thing. He had that cold, predatory professionalism of a man who smiled with his lips but never his eyes. He ran Norfield Dynamics like a kingdom, and anyone who questioned him disappeared quietly. Aaron studied my face. "You don't look surprised." "Because I'm not," I replied, the words slipping out before I could filter them. "So he was right," he whispered. "They ruined him." I felt a bitter laugh rise but swallowed it. "Aaron, your father was a good man. One of the best. If they pushed him out, it wasn't because he failed, it's because he refused to let someone else hide their failures." Aaron took a shaky breath. "I need your help." That caught me off guard. My help? With what? To expose what happened. To expose who did it. I lifted the grocery bag slightly. "Look at me. I deliver orders for a living now. And yet," he said with a quiet intensity, "you're still the man my father trusted. He said you had the courage he wished he had." His voice trembled. "And I think they ruined your life too." For a long moment, I just stood there on his porch holding those grocery bags, feeling the weight of two ruined lives pressing on my shoulders, Daniel's and my own. It was strange how grief could linger for years, buried beneath routine and exhaustion, only to rise again with one name spoken by a stranger. "Aaron," I finally said, "whatever you think I can do, those days are gone. I'm not the man I used to be." He shook his head. "That's not true. You're just beaten down. There's a difference." His confidence in me felt undeserved, almost painful. I looked away, staring at the quiet street lined with trimmed lawns and parked cars. Everything felt normal here, safe, predictable, so different from the storm he was dragging me back into. "Why come to me?" I asked. "Because I found something." He pulled out his phone, hesitated, and then turned the screen toward me. It showed a picture of a folder labeled ND_Pierce. My father left this on an encrypted drive. I cracked it last month. A chill crawled up my spine. "What's in it?" "Proof." His voice tightened. "Emails. Documents. Internal messages. Stuff that shows he was right. Stuff that shows your COO, Marcus Hale, covered up a major safety failure and then blamed my father to protect himself." My pulse thudded in my ears. "If that's true, you should go to a lawyer." He gave a humorless laugh. "We tried. 2 firms said the company's too powerful. One told me to forget it unless I had someone from the inside who could confirm details." I understood then. He didn't need a warrior, he needed a witness. "Aaron, if what you're trying to do is real, then this isn't just dangerous. It's deadly for careers. For reputations. For people who've already lost everything," he cut in softly. That shut me up. He stepped closer. "You know what they did to my father. And I think you know they didn't just fire you, they erased you. The timing isn't a coincidence." I swallowed hard. "Are you saying my firing was planned?" Aaron's eyes locked onto mine with a seriousness that made my skin crawl. "I'm saying," he whispered, "Marcus Hale is still cleaning up his mess, and you were next." The name Marcus Hale had always made my stomach tighten, but hearing Aaron say it now, linked to my firing, felt like the ground beneath me shifted. I set the grocery bags down on the porch step because suddenly they felt too heavy to hold. "Aaron, that's a serious accusation." "It's not an accusation," he replied. "It's a pattern." I stared at him, searching his face for any sign of exaggeration or obsession. But he wasn't desperate or confused. He was calm. Focused. The kind of focus people have when they've spent months piecing broken truths together and finally see the full picture. "What pattern?" I asked quietly. He pulled a folded paper from his pocket. It was worn at the edges, like he'd opened and closed it 100 times. He handed it to me. I unfolded it slowly. It was a timeline. Names, dates, resignations, firings, sudden promotions, internal incidents marked with red ink. Daniel Pierce was there. My own firing date circled in red too. Then I saw the connections, lines linking both our names back to the same 3 executives. One of them was Marcus. "This is impossible," I whispered. "This can't mean." "It means," Aaron said, his voice low and steady, "that the same people who forced out my father were involved in removing you. Different methods, same purpose. My father threatened their lies. And you? You knew too much history." My throat tightened. "But I never spoke up." "You didn't have to," he replied. "You existed. You remembered. That was enough." A coldness seeped into my spine. Memories began resurfacing. Meetings cut short when I entered the room, conversations that stopped abruptly, files I couldn't access anymore in my final months. I had brushed them off as corporate restructuring, typical political nonsense. Now it all felt staged. Prepared. Executed. "Aaron," I said, struggling to steady my voice. What exactly do you want from me? His eyes glistened, not from weakness, but from the sheer weight of the truth he'd been carrying alone. I want justice, he said. Not the kind written in reports or decided in quiet settlements. Real justice. For my father. For you. For anyone they destroyed. He stepped closer, his voice barely above a whisper. But most of all, I want to make Marcus Hale finally pay. The name echoed in my head like a warning. Marcus Hale. A man whose smile always felt like a blade pressed gently against your throat. Hearing Aaron speak of making him pay stirred something in me I hadn't felt in years, an old, buried fire I thought had died with my career. But fear rose too. Listen, I said, keeping my voice even, Marcus has power, influence, connections. You have no idea how far his reach goes. Aaron didn't flinch. I don't care how far it goes. My father didn't deserve what they did to him. And neither did you. I let out a long breath, rubbing a hand across my face. The air felt heavier. The street quieter. Justice isn't simple. And revenge. This isn't revenge, he interrupted. It's correction. They destroyed people and walked away richer. They hid failures that risked lives. They lied, manipulated, crushed anyone who stood in their path. Someone has to stop them. His conviction shook me. Why not go public with what you have? I can't publish anything without confirming the technical parts. I'm not an engineer. But you are. You worked on the exact systems my father wrote about. You can read these documents and understand what they really mean. He pulled out another sheet, prints of scanned emails, highlighted sections, internal strings of messages discussing risk management, redirected accountability, controlled narrative. Code for cover-ups. I recognized the tone immediately. This is serious, I murmured, scanning the lines. It's evidence, he said. But evidence needs a voice strong enough to carry it. I need your voice. I felt the weight of that. For years, I had swallowed my pride, accepted humiliation, convinced myself this was simply how life worked. But something had changed the moment Aaron said his father never trusted anyone but me. Something shifted inside me when he suggested Marcus had erased me deliberately. For the first time in a long while, the anger didn't feel like poison. It felt like purpose. Aaron, I said quietly, if we do this, there's no turning back. I know, he replied, eyes steady. And it could get dangerous. His jaw hardened. It already is. Come inside, Aaron said, stepping back from the door. It's safer if we talk where no one can overhear. The word safer made me hesitate. I glanced around instinctively, scanning the street, the parked cars, the windows across the road. Everything looked normal, but suddenly normal felt staged. Like a set built to hide something rotten behind the walls. I picked up the grocery bags and followed him inside. His house was neat, quiet, and filled with framed photographs, his father at graduations, birthdays, hiking trips. Daniel smiling in places where the stress hadn't reached him yet. Or maybe he had simply learned to hide it well. Aaron motioned for me to sit at the dining table. Give me a second. He went upstairs and returned with a worn leather box. Inside were printed papers, USB drives, and a notebook with Daniel's handwriting across the first page. Sharp, precise, the same script he used on reports years ago. He placed everything between us. This is everything my father documented. He knew something was coming. He just didn't know who to trust. I opened the notebook slowly. Words, dates, diagrams. Notes on safety protocol failures that had been flagged and then deleted. Conversations he'd had with management. Meetings suddenly canceled. Emails mysteriously disappearing from his sent folder. And then I saw a line that made my chest tighten. If anything happens to me, Halden will know what to do. I froze. Aaron watched me quietly. He believed in you until the end. My hands trembled slightly as I closed the notebook. Why didn't he talk to me? Why didn't he say anything? He tried, Aaron said softly. But the company warned him. Subtly at first. Then aggressively. They told him his pension would be withheld if he caused any disruption. They threatened legal action. They even hinted that anyone he spoke to would suffer consequences. I swallowed. Art. So he stayed silent to protect others. He stayed silent to protect you, Aaron corrected. That hit harder than I expected. Harder than I was ready for. Aaron leaned forward, voice firm. He died carrying their secrets. You don't have to. I sat there staring at Daniel's handwriting, feeling the years fall away. I could see him again, standing by the whiteboard, tapping a marker against his palm, trying to explain a risk none of us fully understood yet. He had been brilliant, stubborn in the best way, the kind of engineer who cared more about safety than profit margins. Which meant he was exactly the kind of man someone like Marcus would tear apart without hesitation. I looked up at Aaron. Why now? Why bring this to me after all these years? Because the same things are happening again, he said. New failures. New cover-ups. Same signatures. Same initials. And now they've started silencing employees who ask questions. Not firing them loudly, removing them quietly. A cold shiver crept down my arms. How do you know? Because I found emails from last year, mentioning you. He reached into the leather box and pulled out another printout, this one an internal message between senior executives. My name was right there. Halden's long-term access is unnecessary. Prepare removal strategy. The words blurred for a moment as anger surged through me. My termination wasn't sudden. It wasn't random. It wasn't a budget issue. It was a calculated erasure. I gripped the table edge. All these years. I thought I just became irrelevant. You didn't, Aaron said quietly. You were eliminated. The injustice of it all hit me like a physical blow. The humiliation. The isolation. The months of believing I was the failure. They had taken everything from me, my livelihood, my reputation, my sense of purpose, and they hadn't even thought I deserved an explanation. I leaned back, hands trembling. What do you want me to do? Aaron didn't blink. I want you to help me build a case so strong, so undeniable that Marcus Hale can't bury it. I want to expose him publicly. Not just for my father, but for everyone he destroyed. I shook my head slowly. This isn't a fight. This is a war. Aaron's voice softened. Then let's stop pretending they didn't start it. The room felt too small, the air too charged. For the first time in years, I felt something powerful rising in me, not fear. Resolve. I took a deep breath and let it out slowly, trying to steady the storm building inside me. For years, I had carried my humiliation alone, convincing myself it was fate, bad luck, the world moving too fast for an old man like me. But now the truth sat right in front of me, in papers, in emails, in Daniel's trembling handwriting. They had taken my life apart piece by piece. And they had done the same to him. Aaron, I finally said, if we do this, we need to be smart. We can't rush in with emotions. Marcus will crush us before we even get close. Aaron nodded. I know. I've been preparing for months. But without you, I can't decode half of what my father wrote. I flipped through another page in the notebook. Technical notes, schematics, warnings about structural failures in a project they rushed to launch. I recognized the numbers. I had worked on early versions of the same system, before they reassigned me, due to reorganization. Another lie, another step in cleaning their tracks. Where did you get the drives? I asked. Aaron hesitated. My dad hid them behind the drywall in his study. I only found them because the paint peeled and I tore the patch off. It was like he wanted me to find them eventually. I imagined Daniel, scared but determined, sealing evidence inside his own walls. Alone. Unprotected. Carrying the weight of a truth he knew could destroy powerful men. We need someone on the inside, I murmured. Aaron's eyes sparked. Someone still at the company? Yes. Someone who knows what's happening now. Someone who can confirm things quietly. He bit his lip. Do you know anyone left who would talk to you? I nodded slowly. One person. If they haven't turned entirely. My old teammate Maya. Sharp, cautious, and one of the few who still had a conscience when I left. She had emailed me once after I was fired, just one line. I'm sorry. I had no choice. I hadn't understood then. Now I did. Aaron leaned forward. Can you reach her? I closed the notebook and stood up. I have to. She might be the only door left into the truth. That night, long after I finished my deliveries, I sat alone in my car outside a dimly lit parking lot, staring at Maya's contact on my phone. My thumb hovered over the call button for nearly 5 minutes. We hadn't spoken in almost a year. Last time, she sounded shaken, like someone was watching her even during that brief message. I finally pressed call. 1 ring. 2 rings. 3. Then her voice came through, low and tense. Halden? Hearing my name like that, whispered as if it was dangerous, sent a chill down my spine. Maya. I need to talk. It's important. She hesitated. You shouldn't call this number. I know, I said. But I need answers. And I think you're the only one who can help me. A long silence stretched between us, heavy and loaded with unspoken fear. Meet me, she finally said. Tomorrow 8 p.m. Same cafe we used to go to. Sit in the back booth. Don't come early. She hung up before I could reply. I lowered the phone and exhaled shakily. If she was this scared, things inside Norfield Dynamics were far worse than I imagined. I drove to Aaron's house the next morning. He opened the door, eyes filled with restless anticipation. Did she agree? She did, I said. But the way she spoke, something's wrong. Aaron nodded knowingly. They're watching everyone. Especially anyone who worked closely with my father. I sat at his table again, flipping through Daniel's notebook. A name kept appearing across the pages, Project Meridian. It was circled, underlined, sometimes written in all caps. I remembered the early stages of it, a massive high-risk infrastructure system that promised huge profits. If Daniel had discovered failures in it, and management hid those failures from regulators. My stomach tightened. Aaron, if this project launches with the issues your father documented, people could get hurt. He met my eyes. That's why we have to stop them. I looked at the notebook again. At Daniel's warnings. At the weight of what lay ahead. Tomorrow's meeting with Maya could change everything, or end everything. We need to be prepared, I said. Because Maya won't just bring information. Aaron swallowed. She'll bring danger with her. The cafe was nearly empty when I arrived the next evening. A small place tucked between a laundromat and a pharmacy, the kind of spot where no one looked twice at strangers sitting alone. I slipped into the back booth, the same one where Maya and I used to sit during lunch breaks years ago, back when life was simple and the darkest thing we worried about was a delayed deadline. I kept my cap low and my eyes on the door. Every passing minute stretched tight in my chest. At exactly 8:03 p.m. Maya walked in. She looked different, thinner, tired, her hair pulled back in a way that felt more defensive than practical. When she saw me, relief flickered across her face, followed instantly by fear. She slid into the booth quickly. I only have 15 minutes, she whispered, glancing over her shoulder. They track our proximity badges now. If they see mine outside the facility too often, they start asking questions. I leaned in. Maya, what's going on in there? She swallowed hard. Worse than anything you think. Project Meridian is unstable. They know it. But Marcus wants the launch anyway. It's tied to a federal contract, massive payout. If they delay, investors will pull out. My jaw clenched. So they're gambling with people's lives. She nodded. Your firing wasn't random. You asked too many technical questions during your last quarter. I think Marcus saw you as a leftover risk. Someone who could connect the dots once the failures started appearing. I felt anger surge through my ribs. And Daniel? Maya's hands trembled. He found the original flaw. He tried to escalate. Marcus buried his report, then redirected blame onto him. After Daniel left, they scrubbed every trace of his findings from the system. Except he hadn't left it all behind. He had documented everything privately. I lowered my voice. Maya, we have his notes. And proof. Her eyes widened with something between hope and terror. Then listen carefully. If you want to expose Marcus, there's one file you need, one he keeps hidden off the official servers. A personal archive. Where is it? I asked. She looked around once more, then leaned forward, her voice trembling. In his private office safe. My heart pounded the moment she said the word safe. Marcus Hale was many things, cold, ruthless, calculating, but careless was not one of them. If he kept a private archive, it meant he had something so explosive, so incriminating, he couldn't risk storing it anywhere digital. Something Daniel must have gotten too close to. Something worth destroying lives over. Maya, I whispered, how do you even know about this safe? She clasped her trembling hands together. Because he made me scan documents for him once. Late at night. He gave me a printed file and told me to digitize only half of it. When I asked where the rest should go, he opened the safe and put the physical pages inside. What kind of file was it? She hesitated, then glanced down. A risk assessment. The real one. The one that stated the failure rate was nearly triple what they reported. My chest tightened. And he hid it? He destroyed the digital copy, she said, and kept the physical one in that safe. I think he keeps other things there too. Old reports, messages, maybe even drafts of the cover-up. He's paranoid, Halden. He only trusts metal and locks. I leaned back, breath shaking. How do we get inside? She shook her head quickly. I don't know the combination. But I know when he leaves his office unattended. That caught my attention. When? I asked. Every Thursday night. He has a standing dinner off-site with investors. He leaves around 6:45 and never comes back until morning. A plan formed in my mind, reckless but alive. And security? Minimal after 7 p.m. It's only 2 guards and a night supervisor. The cameras in his hallway have a blind spot, an angle he insisted on during remodeling. You can slip through it if you know exactly where to stand. Aaron would know how to navigate it. I could read the documents. Maya could guide us from the inside. For the first time, the impossible didn't feel impossible. It felt inevitable. Maya, I said quietly, can you help us? She stared at me, fear swimming in her eyes, but beneath it, something else. Something tired of being silent. She nodded. I'll help you bring him down. We left the cafe separately just as Maya instructed. She walked out first, keeping her head down, disappearing into the night like someone who had learned to erase her own footsteps. I waited 2 minutes before getting up, slipping out a side door and taking the long way back to my car. Every shadow felt sharper. Every passing stranger looked twice as suspicious. When I finally reached my car, I sat there gripping the steering wheel, trying to absorb everything she had told me. A safe. A hidden archive. A blind spot in the cameras. Marcus Hale's fortress wasn't impenetrable, but breaching it meant stepping back into a fight I had spent years avoiding. Aaron was waiting when I reached his house. He opened the door before I even knocked, pacing anxiously. What did she say? Did she talk? I nodded and stepped inside. More than I expected. Daniel was right about everything. And Marcus, he's hiding the real files in a safe inside his office. Aaron's eyes flared with a mix of fear and excitement. So we break in. I raised a hand. It's not that simple. Security is tight. And if we get caught, it's over, not just for us but for anyone trying to expose this. Aaron inhaled slowly, steadying himself. But there's a chance. A small one, I said. But yes. We sat at the table again, Daniel's notebook between us. I traced my fingers along the edge of the page, remembering the man who trusted me enough to write my name in his final warnings. This Thursday, I continued, Marcus leaves at 6:45. After that, there are 2 guards and a supervisor. Maya can get us into the building, but once we're inside, we're on our own. Aaron nodded firmly. What about the safe? We don't know the combination, I admitted. But Maya thinks the key documents might be loose inside. If we can crack it open, quietly, we get everything. Aaron sat back, exhaling through his teeth. Then we prepare. Are you sure? I asked, studying him. There's no coming back from this. If Marcus finds out. He already took everything from me, Aaron said softly. I'm not afraid of the truth anymore. Neither was I. Not after losing so much. Not after learning what they stole from Daniel. Not after realizing they had erased me on purpose. Revenge wasn't just coming. It was overdue. Thursday came faster than I expected. The entire day felt like a countdown, each hour tightening around my chest like a rope. I tried to distract myself with deliveries, but every doorstep, every grocery bag, every mile behind the wheel felt unreal, like the world had become a faint background while something far bigger waited in the dark. By 6:20 p.m., I was sitting in my car outside Norfield Dynamics for the first time since the day they erased me. The building looked the same, glass panels catching the evening light, the company logo shining proudly as if it hadn't destroyed lives behind those walls. But now, instead of feeling small, I felt something else. Rage that had finally found direction. Aaron sat in the passenger seat, bouncing his knee restlessly. He wore a cap low over his forehead, his jaw set tight, determination radiating through him. He'll leave any minute. I nodded, watching the entrance. At 6:43, Marcus Hale walked out, flawless suit, perfect posture, moving like a man who owned everything his eyes touched. He spoke briefly to a guard, then climbed into a sleek black car and disappeared down the road. Aaron exhaled sharply. That's it. He's gone. 2 minutes later, my phone buzzed. A text from Maya. Back door open. Come now. Don't talk to anyone. My pulse hammered. It's time. We stepped out, moving quickly but trying not to draw attention. The back entrance was dimly lit, a narrow hallway leading into the service corridor. Maya stood there in plain office clothes, her badge clipped visibly, her face pale. You have 20 minutes before the supervisor does rounds, she whispered. Go straight, take the elevator to level 4, then left. The blind spot is 3 steps before his door. Stay low. Thank you, I said quietly. She shook her head. Don't thank me. Just finish what he started. We entered the elevator. As the doors closed, Aaron whispered, Are you okay? I stared at my reflection in the metal panel, older, tired, but no longer defeated. For the first time in years, I said, I know exactly what I'm doing. The doors opened. Level 4. Silence. And the path to Marcus Hale's office lay waiting. The hallway was quiet, too quiet. The kind of silence that made every breath sound louder, every movement sharper. Aaron and I moved low, keeping close to the wall, counting each step the way Maya instructed. 3 steps before the door, we slid into the camera's blind spot. I could almost feel the lens sweeping behind us, searching, missing us by inches. Marcus's office door stood ahead, sleek and polished, as if mocking us with its false elegance. "Ready?" Aaron whispered. I nodded and gently pushed the handle. Unlocked. We slipped inside. The office smelled like expensive leather and lies. Everything was perfectly arranged. Books lined by height, certificates polished, awards placed where sunlight would hit them. But none of that mattered. The safe was what we came for. It sat behind a framed photograph of Marcus shaking hands with a senator. I removed the frame carefully, revealing the steel door beneath it, large, heavy, intimidating. Aaron knelt beside me. "How do we open it?" I pulled out the toolkit he'd brought, my hand steadier than I expected. Old safes have patterns. Pressure points. Heat signatures. I've cracked a few in my time. He raised an eyebrow. "You have." I managed a faint smile. "You don't work under corrupt executives for 30 years without learning how they hide things." Minutes passed. Sweat gathered on my forehead. Each click of the metal felt like a countdown. My heart thudded louder with every tiny shift inside the mechanism. Then, a soft, heavy clunk. The safe unlocked. Aaron's breath caught. "Open it." I pulled the door slowly. Inside were folders, tapes, printed emails, handwritten notes. Proof. All of it. The story Daniel tried to tell. The truth they silenced him for. I lifted the first folder. Aaron whispered, voice trembling, This will destroy him." "No," I said quietly. "This will reveal him." Footsteps suddenly echoed in the hallway. Aaron froze. "Someone's coming." I grabbed as many folders as I could and stuffed them into the bag we brought. "We have what we need. Move." We slipped out the side exit Maya had pointed out, disappearing into the night just as the supervisor turned the corner. Outside, cold air hit my face. I looked at Aaron, eyes wide, chest heaving, clutching his father's justice in his hands. "It's over," he whispered. I shook my head. "No. It's beginning." And for the first time since they erased me, I felt alive again. The night we escaped with the files, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: control. It was strange, almost frightening, to feel power return to a man who had been stepped on, dismissed, erased. But once those documents sat on Aaron's kitchen table, spread out like a battlefield map, we knew there was no turning back. We uploaded scanned copies to 3 separate anonymous drives, encrypted everything, and prepared a whistleblower package that no lawyer could ignore. By morning, we sent it simultaneously to investigative journalists, federal regulators, 2 senators, and the legal firm that had rejected Aaron earlier. This time they didn't reject him. They called him within hours. By noon the news broke. Major cover-up allegations at Norfield Dynamics. Whistleblower documents reveal safety fraud. And then the name that made every muscle in my body tighten: evidence points to executive involvement by Marcus Hale. I watched it all unfold from my small living room, the same place where I had once stared helplessly at the email announcing my termination. Now the screen showed Marcus leaving the company building, chased by reporters, hiding his face, refusing to answer questions. By evening, the board placed him on administrative leave. The next morning he was suspended. Within 3 days, the SEC had opened a federal investigation. Everything he had built on lies was collapsing under the weight of Daniel's truth, and our courage to reveal it. When the prosecutors called Aaron for statements, I sat beside him the entire time. He held his father's notebook like a shield, his hands steady at last. They asked detailed questions. We gave detailed answers. When it was over, the lead attorney shook our hands and said quietly, "Your father would be proud." Marcus tried to fight back, called the evidence fake, accused us of manipulation, but the files from his private safe destroyed every lie he tried to build. When they released the footage of him ordering reports to be shredded, it was over. He resigned in disgrace. The company fired him publicly. His name was stripped from every award, every plaque, every title he once flaunted. For me, the moment of justice came weeks later when I received a letter from the Federal Review Board. They acknowledged my wrongful termination and reopened the case, admitting I had been targeted for speaking up. I didn't want my old job back, not anymore. I wanted something deeper. I wanted the truth to matter. And it finally did. Aaron and I visited Daniel's grave the day the case went public. We stood there quietly, the autumn wind brushing against our jackets. Aaron placed the notebook on his father's stone, tears in his eyes. "We did it," he whispered. I nodded, feeling the weight lift from my chest. After years of silence, years of being erased, I finally felt seen again. Justice had taken everything from Marcus, but it had given me back my life.